Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a passive mob farm, an animal farm, that is aimed at being compact, easy and quick to build while providing decent amounts of food plus other items as a bonus. This farm relies on the use of a block rarely seen in similar contraptions, big dripleaf. This block here. Why big dripleaf, you might be wondering? Well, big dripleaf happens to have a subset of characteristics that are going to help us reach our goals. But first, let's talk a little bit about this peculiar block. As you probably already know, big dripleaf is a block that is found in one and only one biome, lush caves, where it occurs naturally on clay blocks. But once it is harvested, big dripleaf can be placed on a limited list of other blocks. We have grass, podzol, dirt and its variants, and mycelium. For today's farm, of course, we're gonna use grass. An interesting characteristic of big dripleaf is that when the leaf is not folded, it acts as a solid block. I can't walk through big dripleaf. But as soon as I jump onto it and the leaves fold, then it becomes transparent. Another interesting characteristic of big dripleaf is that it belongs to the so-called Instapush category, which means mobs can spawn inside of big dripleaf. Let's see big dripleaf acting as a spawnable block. Here we just saw our first set of cows spawning. And here we just saw a chicken spawn. So how does Instapush work exactly? Well, it's actually quite simple. Instapush allows mobs to spawn into a block that seemingly should be non-spawnable, such as big dripleaf. Glass is another example. How does it work exactly? Well, it's quite simple. This row is fully spawnable. And as you can see here, this is north and this is west. If a mob were to spawn somewhere on this row, it would instantly be pushed towards the west and fall. This is a very useful characteristic found in a few blocks, such as, like I said, glass, big dripleaf, TNT I believe also is Instapush, and snow layers, especially snow layer 7, as I used in another one of my farms. But Instapush isn't as simple as it sounds. Some blocks can cancel the ability of Instapush blocks to spawn mobs. So for example, solid blocks. Solid blocks, of course, cancel the spawnability of Instapush blocks if they are placed on the north or west, but some other blocks, such as buttons and open fence gates, can also cancel the spawnability of Instapush blocks. Now let's go back to the spawning area here and try and observe an interesting fact that happens with mobs. So let's despawn these mobs and wait for another set of mobs to spawn. We just saw the chicken here spawn and immediately walk onto the big dripleaf. That is because, like I explained earlier, big dripleaf acts as a solid block. It can't be walked through. So when mobs spawn and attempt to move, they have only one way to go, and it's up and on top of the big dripleaf, from which they subsequently fall, but that's not relevant. Now this is interesting, because if we could take advantage of the fact they walk automatically onto the big dripleaf to force them into a water stream, we could efficiently move them to a killing chamber, or even better, to a Trident Killer. However, there are a couple of problems. First, let's see here, I just placed water one block above our big dripleaf, but as you can see here, water is flowing through all of the big dripleaf blocks. So we have to separate. We can't have water in direct contact with big dripleaf. We have to separate it. So ideally, we'd want it on this side here. But like I explained earlier, we couldn't block it with open fence gates, for example, because open fence gates cancel the spawnability of Instapush blocks, such as big dripleaf. So what are we gonna do? Well, it's actually very easy, and the answer, you've probably already guessed what it is. It's scaffolding. Scaffolding is spawnable, as you probably already know, and is used in many mob farms to create water streams for mobs to be carried. But interestingly, contrarily to open fence gates, scaffolding does not cancel the spawnability of big dripleaf. So even if I have scaffolding on top of my big dripleaf here, the Instapush capability is still alive and well. So for example, this here would be an entirely spawnable setup. From this, well, all we have to do is add a few water streams. And we have what we were trying to achieve. We have our big dripleaf here, which is spawnable. We have scaffolding here, which is also spawnable. And as soon as mobs are gonna spawn into the big dripleaf here, if they're tall enough, they'll get caught into the stream immediately. And if they are one block tall or smaller, well, they'll get caught as soon as they try to move, because as we saw here, as soon as they try to move, mobs have only one way to go, and it's up. So this is gonna be our base layout. The basis for our layout, should I say. And here is our farm base layout. So you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big dripleaf blocks, and with one scaffolding block there, and then on top of it 7 scaffolding blocks here, and then here 7 scaffolding blocks with an open fence gate here. The reason for this open fence gate here is to prevent these guys here to fly back underneath the scaffolding. If we had one more row of grass like this here, sometimes chicken would be able to fly back underneath and chill under the scaffolding, and we want to avoid that. But this is not exactly the way we're gonna build our farm. We need another step. And that step is required because sometimes mobs, when they get caught into the water stream, can bump into each other, and one of the mobs can get bumped onto the big drip leaf, which means it gets stuck in a loop where it climbs up onto the big drip leaf, then falls down, then climbs back up, then falls down, and sometimes glitches out through the bottom. And this is not something that we want to see happen. So in order to prevent that from happening, what we're going to do is add another layer of scaffolding and water streams, ensuring that whenever a mob gets caught into the first stream, when it bobs up, it gets caught into the second stream, where even if it gets bumped, there is no big drip leaf. So here, let's see the finished layout, and this is it. This is our finished layout. So we have our big drip leaf here, then our first scaffolding layer and second scaffolding layer. Let's try and spawn some mobs. First I have to turn this on. This kills horses because this farm doesn't like horses. It would need to have a wider opening here to take care of horses. This was meant to be built in a forest, as you will see later in the video. So let's try and spawn more mobs. Here we have our first mobs, which should soon move and get caught into the streams. And here it just happened. Here again. Here again. As you perhaps saw, this sheep on the left started taking damage because it waited under the water for too long. But when it starts taking damage, it automatically tries to move towards air, which gets it caught into the water streams. So this is our farm, basically the layout for our farm. Now of course we could simply place a bunch of fires or a bunch of water streams leading into a pit with campfires and call it a day. It would be a very functional farm. But why not go the extra step and use a Trident Killer? This is a slightly modified version of the meat grilling Trident Killer that I recently posted onto my channel. The version that I posted actually had a problem with tridents ending up glitching through the platform after a while, but here I replaced the platform with chests, and this seems to be enough to prevent entirely the glitching from happening. If you want to see how to build this, I would encourage you to go to my page and look for the meat grilling Trident Killer. I'll put a link in the description. There is also a binder bug that is related to chunk borders. If your Trident Killer is built on a chunk border, you might want to add a bunch of repeaters as shown here. But other than that, the way this Trident Killer works is very simple. It actually moves tridents like on a conveyor belt underneath a lava blade. This sets the tridents on fire and allows us to get fire kills on our mobs, like so. And if mobs get killed while on fire, as you know, they give you cooked meat as a result. So now let's move on to another world and see the finished farm in action. So here it is, and as you can see, it's very compact. One thing that I forgot to add in the explanation was this. We need light here, along this row here, and along this row here, to allow the farm to work at night as well as during the day. So let's turn the TK on and make sure that we have item dropping on as well. So here we should start seeing our first cooked meat. Here let's move to our AFK, which is, I think this was built at a height of 128, so yeah, 151 or 52 to be sure. And here we should start seeing mobs appearing, spawning and getting caught by the water streams and pushed towards the Trident Killer. Like I said, this Trident Killer especially is only made for 1-by-1 mobs, so it can't deal with horses, which is why this farm as presented here was planned and made for a forest biome. If you make it in a biome where horses spawn, I would suggest that you increase the gap here from 3 to 4 and use campfires to deal with the animals. As far as rates go, here are a few typical hours. Each chest represents 1 hour of looting 3. So it's not incredible in terms of rates, and especially when compared to a mushroom farm, which can output a ton of meat. There's one on my channel if you want to take a look at it. But this is mostly made for example, if you have your base in a forest, this would be very convenient to have running at all times. Lastly, there is one biome that I would recommend you do not create this farm on, and it is snowy plains, because the foxes that spawn there rarely get caught into the streams. They don't move a lot, so they don't attempt to walk onto the big dripleaf, and as a consequence they don't get caught into the streams, so they hog the mob cap for very long times. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed looking at this quite peculiar farm, and well, if you have some, it is very quick to build because it's very compact, and as you can see, it's only very few blocks to put together. So if you have some time to build it in your base or over a forest that is close to your base, I would suggest that you gave it a shot. If you have any comments or questions, of course, feel free to hit the comment section and I will be happy to reply. So thank you for watching and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!